said, this kind of falls back on Jerry's, so I'm not going to steal his glory, but I just want to, I want to thank him for fixing the road out Subway. I know we hadn't really had a chance to discuss it in full since the last council meeting, but that's probably the best thing that you're doing. Like, you probably got a raise and all from it since you did it. But no, it really, like, thank y'all for the work that y'all did on it. Like, and everybody involved making it happen between the council, the mayor, and Spence getting everything done up to get it all taken care of. But thank y'all, because I haven't heard anything but good feedback from the whole community about that driveway. And that's really all I have, unless you need me to touch base on anything else that you have when you get to your part there, sir.
Chief John, I talked to Chief Jones a little bit today, but if Chief Lane, if you could kind of give me the rundown on what you think about the dispatch and options.
I know since I've taken over at Chief in January that we've had ongoing situations back and forth, and I'm not pointing any fingers at any one person. You know, there's stuff that could have been done different. There's stuff that we all could have done different to prevent some of it from happening. I get that. But the kind of the crossroads we're at now, in my opinion, between the city of Headland on the south end, us, sheriff's office on the north end, and I've told a lot of people the same analogy, and I'll just say it again. We're pouring money into a pot up here that we can't fill up. They're pouring money into a pot in Headland that they can't fill up. And the only way to get those pots filled up is to combine those pots, you know. And I've asked for meetings for everybody to come together, sit down. I know the mayor has went with the judge. They've looked at issues. I know that some of y'all have went and looked, you know, at weighing the pros and cons. And I've battled with this since I took over as chief. But when y'all hired me to be the chief, my job here is the safety of my officers. It's also to prevent any loss of life for the citizens here in Abbeville, in Henry County. I think the only way we're going to ever resolve this problem is to take those two pots and to put them together. If that means that we have to shift, you know, our resources down to Headland, let them, you know, take the reins on it for a while, I think they're better equipped. Their equipment's more state-of-the-art than ours here. We're spending a lot of money on the system up here trying to just patch it and trying to keep it going, but even the workforce, we're having a hard time keeping dispatchers working up here. I know today all morning up until lunch we only have one dispatcher working in a center that should be EMD because it's answering 911 calls for rescue, for everything else. And it's been an ongoing struggle. So, you know, if we combine them, we're putting 3 dispatchers on at each shift. We're raising the pay up to get to where we can maybe retain employees. We can have better trained employees. Doing so will save the city more money if we put it in Headland versus it staying here. So, I mean, if you're asking for my recommendation, and I would say that, you know, now is the time that if we're going to put it together and truly have one centralized dispatch center in Henry County under one roof, that now's the time to do it before everybody starts their planning for their budgets for next year, before everybody starts getting all their ducks in a row as we move forward. I know Chad is here. He can speak on a little bit to give y'all insight on the stuff that still has to be done up here. If we do keep dispatch up here, the costs that the city's still gonna have to undertake and the county's gonna have to undertake, whereas if we go to Headland, we start losing a lot of that cost. So if there's anything that you want to kind of update them on what's going on that end.
So I'm talking about the technical part of it. and I won't be too technical. So, the Wiregrass took on a project, a hosted solution project. So we all use the same 911 system in the entire Wiregrass for 10 counties. So earlier this year, that started being deployed throughout the Wiregrass. Headland went live with that system the 1st of June. We didn't go live up here because of the remodel of the annex building, just kind of not knowing where things are going to lie. That's supposed to take place in August. So that's an expense the 911 board is waiting on to whether we've got to continue to move in with that process or relocate those positions to Headland, depending on which way you go. A little bit more on the technical part of it. What happens if you do decide to go to move to Headland? The 911 board would incur most of the charges. We've got to run a couple extra Cat 5 lines. They have the facility, the stations are pretty much set up now. They have 2 stations that run full-time now. They would add a 3rd position. So they would run 3 operators each shift for 4 shifts, and then have a supervisor on top of that who would also float or fill in. Equipment-wise, we would require the 2 radio consoles that are in the dispatch center now. That was purchased, I can't tell you when they were purchased, but they were the city purchased them. They were reimbursed 100% by the 911 board a few years ago. Those consoles would be relocated to Headland, and that would be the only equipment that would be needed outside of that. The 2 extra 911 positions are already here. They're just in boxes. We just got to set those up and get the connections available. That's a couple of weeks time frame. Do you want to talk about phone, or do you want to?
So with the phone system, with CenturyLink, with our phones set up for the 585-2222, the 585-2221 numbers that have been City of Abbeville Police Department for years now. We spoke with CenturyLink, and what they can do is basically set up an automated system. So any of your home security systems, any of your life alert, anything like that that are been programmed to call those numbers without having to go back through, change all those around. If they called, they go to a dispatch center. So there's a person that calls up here to tell them what the alarm is. So what we talked about doing is leaving those numbers as is, just putting in an automated system here. So if they call, if you want dispatch, you press 1 for dispatch. For chief of police, you press 2. For patrol, press 3. For investigations, press 4, whatever. And we can have, mailboxes sent up and directed to where that way. If anybody calls up here needing the police department 24/7, if they call, say for dispatch, you press 1, it's gonna take it and route that number, forward it directly to the dispatch center down there. If they're calling to speak to me, it would forward it to my mailbox, vice versa, the whole way through the secretary or anything else.
So in theory, Chief, the residents from a telephone call standpoint would not know the difference whether they're calling here in Abbeville or Headland.
The person answering the phone would still say whatever dispatch center we want to call. 911 calls would be automatically directed, so no matter if you were at the north end of the county, the south end of the county, if you dial 911, it's not going to delay your phone call. It's not going to trip anything up. It's going to just, your phone call would be routed straight to that. If that 911 center's busy, 911 set up to roll to the next available. So no matter where you're at, if you call 911, somebody's going to answer. The only difference would be it would just reroute the numbers from here straight to Headland. So in theory, anybody calling 911 wouldn't know that they wasn't calling here. Anybody calling 585-2222 wouldn't know that they wasn't calling here.
This will take us the next step toward what we'd like to get, Chief, is to where we can get everybody on the same frequency at some point.
Yes.
We can get this.
So basically what it would do, everybody then would be operating on the same radio. So you have different channels on that radio, but everybody would be on the same radio. So basically if I wanted to talk to you and you were on a different channel, I could flip my channel and I have a radio to talk to you. Currently now we have 3 different radios and none of us can talk to each other on those 3 radios.
Which is a shame.
So and not only that, when you put it there in one centralized dispatch center, and I could care less where it's at. If it's here, if it's in Hellberg, if it's up at White Oak, as long as it works, it works. But in theory, when you put it there together, and like Chad's saying, you'd have three operators on shift every shift. If in the event there was a burglary in progress in Headland, and the dispatcher that was assigned talking to Headland PD heard it, then the dispatcher that's assigned to Abbeville Police can also hear what they're saying and can turn around and dispatch any other available units that are close by to it. Same thing in the officer in distress type call, officer involved shootings that we've had here before. You know, instead, for instance, this morning, if something would have happened this morning like it did a couple of years ago on 431 with officer involved shooting, for her to get everybody en route when she was up here by herself, she would have had to sit there trying to call other officers for assistance on the radio, trying to pick up the phone to call down to Headland to tell Headland that this is going on, to call state troopers, to call anybody else to tell them that that's going on, and she's in there by herself. Whereas if you have this, you have three dispatchers in the room. If that one is taking the call for that officer in distress, she is now focused solely on him and what he needs, and the other two can sit there and get help and get other people en route without any delayed response, without any other phone calls. That's the whole purpose of a centralized dispatch center, and everything's funneled into that one building.
We don't have that type of service now.
No, sir. And right now, the quote that, well, as of right now, we're paying the we're paying the county $125,000 a year for our services here. When I talked to the director, he said that he was estimating the cost to go to probably a minimum of $138,000 a year for it. The letter I received from Mayor Marler today at lunch said that our cost for our services to go to Headland would be $100,000 a year. So basically we'd be saving $40,000 a year also by going and consolidating everything else. And that's the only way to, like I said, to get everybody's pay up. And
yeah, that's a big.
It's not about saving money, it's about saving lives.
Well, it's all one together. I mean, everything comes into it, between all the budgets, between all the municipalities, between the county, and the fact of that, there's, you know, those seconds are saved just by everybody being in that room together and know everybody on the same sheet of music to know what's going on.
The cost, you said E911 board would consider the cost of moving the two consoles down, Chad?
Yeah, we'll incur that entire cost on the consoles. Side two-way, that's their equipment. They'll do the moving. We would have the lines run for the connections, and like I said, that's all the equipment in there. That's our responsibility. That would have to be moved.
How soon could we make the move?
All right, so if you go based off of our MOU that we're operating off of right now with the county, it says that we'd have 30 days, that we have to give them 30-day notice in writing saying that we were going to move. So theoretically, if y'all decide that we were moving to Headland, we'd have to notify them. They'd have 30 days then to, you know we're doing it. I think between me and Chad, we're talking about today actual true putting the equipment in Headland PD to make it all swap over the radios and everything else. It'd be what, probably 2 to 3 weeks. So you're still kind of in that same.
So we're still waiting on Side 2A to finish out the radio system, install radios in cars, give out the portables and stuff like that. They've got to go to each fire station and install all those radio equipment. So about 2 weeks ago, they were about 3 weeks out. So I'm not sure what their time frame is now, but we'll certainly check with them and get that done.
Well, I think if we're looking at it by October 1st, I mean, if you're looking at a hard number, between now October 1st, that's when the new, budget year starts for everybody, everything else. So theoretically, that would be like my goal date. Not saying it couldn't happen before then, but by then, that gives everybody time to make other arrangements if they want to make arrangements or whatever to make a swap over and move.
Just out of curiosity, Chief, the MO, I think you call it MOU, the contract between city and county, was it set for a time date, or is it just 30 days notification?
It was signed back in 2020, but actually the MOU now that we're operating on is nothing compared to, there hasn't been a new one done since the changeover, since the annex. So I'm just saying that is the latest MOU that we're operating off of, but it says on that MOU that if one person decided to cease their part in it would require a 30-day notice.
And are we required to sign, because of this financial obligation, any kind of term agreement with
I would,
the city of Headland?
in my opinion, and this is just my opinion,
I mean, we're gonna go to the, you know, obviously if we're gonna move everything, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, we would create a document for sure.
yeah, and that's what I'm just saying, I would put it in place even, you know, I still want to see this be a true standalone, centralized dispatch center that's funneled through 911. That's not Abbeville Police Department. It's not Henry County Sheriff's Office. Not Headland Police Department.
It's really the first step to getting a facility
Exactly.
built.
Yeah, that's the way we need to do it.
But until you can, like I said, until you can funnel all that together, you can't work toward that common goal when we're working against each other right now.
Question also, if we were to do the swap, let's say, you know, could we do Spence like a contract where it'd be like a yearly contract where we would agree to meet, say like, let's just say July 1st?
Yeah.
To negotiate the contract, make any negotiations, any changes, for it to be in effect, we'll say something like October 1 of that.
Yeah, before budget talks every year, because cost is gonna change
That's right.
for everybody, especially for Headland if they're running it.
Right.
So,
The judge and I went down last week and looked at the system that they had, and you know, it's not that simple. There's some things we have to work out. So you're not gonna do it next week or the next week or maybe the next week either. There's a lot of things you have to work out, but you know, like him, if we're going to do it, we need to kind of start the ball rolling. I didn't get that email about the money because we left them with they were gonna figure and get it to us.
Well, I picked it up. She printed it out today at lunch, so I picked it up whenever she.
I wouldn't say it wasn't right, but I just say it did. That's what we were waiting on, to see the amount of money, so.
So you got the letter from?
It's in my truck. I can go grab it if y'all would like to look.
No,
at
that's
it.
fine. I just said, when we
I
left.
didn't bring it in because it was flooding rain.
When we left, that was the proposal that they had. They were gonna put some numbers together and get it to us. And from then, we're gonna have to see about swapping radios, see about, you know, making sure everything's, so it's not gonna happen. And I'm like him, probably, October 1st would be a good deal, cause that's the budget year. If we're gonna do this, I would like for those of you that have not been, Mark will show it to you anytime you want to see it. The radio will see it.
The amount of information that's in there for him to be able to go back and view this.
It's not hearsay,
What's going on
you see
here.
it. So,
As a first responder who worked down there and here, I know exactly it's right.
Chad, how close are we, could we get it within, if we did a 30-day notice, is that feasible? I mean, I don't want it to be like that.
Sure. On our end, 30 days is plenty of time unless the radio system isn't working. And I have no reason to think it would not be ready by August 1, or if you gave 30 days, you know, August 7th. I would assume, you know, again, I hadn't talked to Ben this week with Side-Two-Way, but from last week's conversation, I would think 30 days, everything would be up and running.
I make a motion to put the county on notice for 30 days and let's move it to Headland for the $100,000 annual contract.
Second.
got a motion? Second? All, any more discussion? All in favor of? Okay, that's majority. Okay, we'll get the ball rolling.